We are back for another episode of the TKG podcast. We might make this into a full podcast episode, or we might make this into a condensed version. We don't know yet. Jerry is MIA. He might be asleep, and he might hate if I actually put that out on air because he knows that that's complete BS. But we actually just got back yesterday or early this morning from the Small Business Expo down in Dallas. And I had about 5.5 hours of driving last night, and we left all three of us after dinner right around like 6:30, 6:45. And so I got home at about 1:15, 1:30 in the morning. But Steve, tell us a little bit about your drive back.
Yeah, we got back. We left out of there a little after 6. We ate dinner, kind of regrouped, went over, what the experience was like when we had dinner, and then you headed north and we headed east to Nashville. But ended up rolling in. I ended up rolling into the house right about 5:15, 5 o'clock, 5:15 in the morning. So needless to say, it was a long drive. That's what they call that, raw dogging it. Mm-hmm. And we'd gotten there the night before, the day before the event, at like 10 o'clock at night. So getting in there, it's just what you do. When you're starting doing these kind of things, you don't have private flights and luxury hotels and things to stay in. You just, grab a good, clean hotel and powwow until 1:30 in the morning, get up, go do the event, get out of the event, do dinner, regroup, kind of go over everything we learned, and then just hit the road. It'd be nice to have it planned out in the future that, a little better as far as time frames, but it's just where we're at because we both had stuff we were doing before we left, and we all have stuff we had to get back to the next day. I remember I told a few people that when we were taught different conversations we had, which were a slew of conversations we were able to have at the Small Business Expo in Dallas, Texas. And just people were really fascinated that we were driving that far. And then just as soon as the event's over in the evening, we were driving back. There's a lot of people that, needless to say, a lot of eyes widened when we were saying to do that. And I didn't even say it with any kind of emotions. Just like, yep, no different than if you were here and we had to drive to Fort Worth when we got done, just kind of that way. But it's what you do. When you're starting out like that, you got to do that. You just got to do it. No guarantee that it was going to work. We didn't know anything. We had expectations going in, but at the same time, we didn't know what to expect. We hoped for the best on it. So when you go into those kind of things, it just really does, it was interesting. I'd say overall, fantastic experience.
Yeah.
What was your take?
It was definitely not a planned trip. It was one of those things that when we were looking across some different events that were coming up in the near future, and this was probably about, I'd say 5-6 weeks ago, and we found the Small Business Expo and how they were kind of traveling around. We were looking at the Atlanta one. Well, the Atlanta one was going to happen in December. And knowing Jerry, we're ready to go. We want to get down there. We want to at least just try one of these things out. And we actually at first we're going to be an exhibitor. And I'm glad looking back now that we decided not to do that, because it was something that we were in this headspace of like, okay, we got to get this. We got to get this branded stuff. We were going to get some branded shirts, the hats. We were going to have business cards. Yeah, all of that fell straight through the floor. So we had our digital cards. Luckily, we have this app called Popple. This is not a sponsored read, but it was very helpful for us to be able to get people's contact information. They were able to get our contact information just by tapping and scanning a QR code on our phone. So that was the lifesaver of getting contacts and getting leads down there. But for the most part, we were like, yeah, we're going to get shirts. Well, a day before, Jerry and I are talking on the phone, and he's like, yeah, unless we want to expedite these basic Gildan t-shirts that are cheaper for us to just go down and buy at a store down the street, we're going to have to expedite it. It's going to be $150. And we're like, no, we're not doing that.
Nah.
So then we go the business card route, and I was like, okay, cool. We can do some same-day printing. That wasn't going to happen as fast on Vistaprint online, and that's nothing against their company. It was just the timing. We were just falling behind. So I was going to go and try to find a local printer here in Bentonville, Arkansas, and they only did one single side same-day printing. And so I called Jerry and was like, hey, I'm not going to be able to pull off these printing business cards unless we just want one-sided. And he was like, nope, not going to have it. We're either going to do the best we can or just go with what we have. And so while we're going down there, I'm leaving work. Jerry and Steve were driving down all day Tuesday. I left around like 4:30, 4:45, got down to the hotel at like 10:30, 11 o'clock. We all got down there about the same time, and then we stayed up until about 1:30, just catching up, talking about the website, talking about the business, what we're trying to experience going into that next day. Wake up, and again, this ain't no Ritz-Carlton. This is the Hampton Inn, but I will have to give it to them. They actually had a good breakfast, and we did talk about that breakfast even later that day because we were still like baffled that we were actually going to have a good breakfast, and the eggs, the sausage, like everything was like spot on with what we needed. Yeah.
That was well done.
So yeah, going into it, it was a long day, and we literally went in blind. We didn't have a idea of how things would go rather than just what was on the agenda. And so as we're walking around and we're seeing like these large businesses and then all these exhibitors with the tents and the pop-up stuff, and you have these big companies mixed in with like small mom and pop businesses and hundreds of business owners, or even what I was kind of took away from this is that not everyone that was at this event was a business owner. Half of these people just have everyday jobs. But what was cool and what I took away was more around the mindset of they have that entrepreneur spirit. And so in order for them to get that fix, they need to go where other business owners hang out at. And so when they're going to these kind of events, that's kind of the draw for them. And I could see half of them where they're like, I have this idea, I want to do this. Who better to ask that idea against than fellow business owners that actually would be able to say, yeah, good luck next time, or, oh, you're actually onto something. This is something that I thought about, and I know so-and-so that does this in this industry. So that's what I took away towards the end of the day. It wasn't a moment in time where throughout the experience I had the light bulb go off and I was like, oh, that's brilliant. It was like more of as I was driving home last night that I thought through that, and I was like, you know what, that's pretty interesting, because we were expecting everyone to be business owners and trying to collaborate and network, and a majority of the people there were of that mindset. But then there was some people that didn't own a business at all, or didn't even like have a business in mind that they wanted to build. They just wanted to be around that entrepreneurial spirit of like, this is mine, I believe in it, and I want to make it work. And I think that's more of the aura that entrepreneurs put off, that even people that are not entrepreneurs or business owners physically, but they have that tenacity. They want to be around people that have that kind of aura, that kind of relationship, than the challenges that they meet, and being able to like combat some of those thoughts and some of those perspectives that their peers wherever they work at probably don't even care. So it was pretty cool to be able to look from that line.
Yeah, just something when you go in there, because what you realize getting in there, and they've got other business owners of varying degrees, whether they had partners or if it were just by themselves in it. The thing that really makes you realize it, if you're not used to it, of course, Jerry has done all the business and everything that we know he's done. You and I haven't. So, and we know him as a business owner, but also he's, uncle and brother-in-law. So it's kind of different. It's always been a family thing to just happen to own a business, multiple businesses. But the thing is when you get down there is you realize everybody else are just regular people. I mean, and Jerry said that before, but it was true. You get down there, regular people. You had varying degrees of personalities. Had stronger personalities. You had used car salesman personalities, and that's a story for later. But, you just meet all kinds. But most of them are just regular people just trying to figure things out. Just regular people. How can I grow my business? If I've got problems, is there an answer I can find, at this expo from the different vendors that help with that? So that's the thing that I really took. One of the things I really took away from it is that they're just regular people, and you just have regular conversations with them, and they all have the things that they're working toward, their aspirations, goals, dreams in business. They all have, to a degree, their own same problems. It's pretty universal that a lot of business has the same kind of problems. It's dressed up differently, as far as different colors and different, styles, but it's still basically the same problem. But that's the thing that I really took away, was just how it's just regular. And of course, the conversations were fantastic. The amount of conversations, we're able to have. I was going to wait and let Jerry get into the speed round if he's able to get in today or not. But because that was really unique. Just to give you a breakdown, they have a speed round in there. So the way it was set up, you had vendors in the main floor of the convention center there in downtown Dallas. And then you had break-off rooms that were scheduled at different times to different speakers you could go. And each of those people pay so much to have the room, and you go in there. And then they had, 2 big keynote speakers through the day that you had in another big hall. Probably,
Totally.
250 to 500 people in there. It was big. And then they had these things, and I've seen it in movies, and it was really interesting to experience it, but it was speed networking. And it's literally along the same lines like in the movie Hitch, where they did a little scene with the speed dating. And that's what you did. One side sat on tables, and you'd have, 50 to 75 people, and maybe 100 in that first round. Tables in a big U shape, so many people to fit in this one area. And one side of the table sat, the other side of the table moved. So every time you had 2 minutes, had a gong, a way too loud loudspeaker if you were right under it trying to have a conversation. But you would get up and move. So every 2 minutes you get down. So when you sit down, realistically, by the time you got settled in and everything, and it was 2 minutes from when you moved, you had about 40 seconds. And you had to do a quick elevator pitch. And that's one thing we realized, and I would recommend get an elevator pitch, get it clear, concise, and just know it like the back of your hand. Just like if I could tell you my name, my address, Social Security, by the time I'd say within a week's my goal is to have to where I have that elevator pitch down to where I know it just like that. And that way you can get with people. When somebody, you just meet them at the store, you meet them out in public, meet them at a restaurant, wherever you just meet somebody and you get a little conversation going. It's fantastic. Way to let people know what you do, get to the point of it and not drag it out. And then if it spurs a conversation, then, definitely develop the conversation based on, the little outline that you gave. But the thing that was really cool about the speed networking is you would have that and they would have that and they'd present. And needless to say, how you presented, you saw all types of personalities there, all types of personalities of people. You had your type A's that were strong, very few. And that's what made me realize a lot of business owners are just regular people getting out there trying to do that. And then when they're put in a situation where they have to do a one-on-one talk like that, I learned a lot. I mean, there was so much information to take into having different conversations, and also the way I decided to show up, the way I wanted to show up getting in there. There's a lot to that and how you present yourself. We could see that, Matt. You remember we were talking about, you just see people walking around, maybe look lost, and Lord knows we had every right to look lost. Mm-hmm. I mean, we walk in there, we don't have cards, we don't have shirts, we all wore black shirts. And who decided that Dallas needed to be 88 degrees on the day we go there in November? That was a surprise. And we left with jackets on from Nashville. You probably did from Bentonville as well. But it was really something to see just the differences of people and realize there's a whole myriad of it. It was a great introduction for me. Jerry's been around more business and more of this stuff than that. But one of the takeaways is there's just regular people. But you really get to, because you have 45 minutes and you'll have conversations with 22 to 23. Well, let's say 20 to 23 people. And they all last 2 minutes. And I never know that having conversations that quick, throwing the pitch out, and you would think they're sitting right beside you. And when you're in there and you're focused on that person in front of you, and then when they talk, you're really listening. Jerry will have to describe his listening technique when he was listening. But when you really listen to that, it's amazing how people, like sometimes there would be a company that had 2 people and they were side by side. Not a good strategy to me. Jerry and I purposely either got on the opposite side of the table or we got in the line where we would never cross. So he and I never talked, which was great. The whole idea is to meet other people. And it was just something how you couldn't hear somebody sitting right now. Like if I put my elbows out like this, I'd hit a person on either side of me. But when you're having that conversation, I did not hear them. I just heard a lot of noise from the general convention, but I could not hear anything they were really saying. what they were saying. So that really surprised me but that's also good because I would talk to people and I would hear them sometimes look over if somebody made a noise or something like that. And so that's one thing I like, when you're having a conversation face to face with somebody like that, focus on them, have that conversation with them. And if they're looking away or, doing it, at least I made sure when I was talking to them, I looked them just straight in the face, to really take in what it was. And that means a lot in business when you're having to deal with people, deal with employees or something like that. It commands a level of intention in the conversation you have. And until you have 23 conversations in a row in 45 minutes, you just also don't realize how tired you can get. Like when you get done, and I did 2 of them, and there were some people that had done all 5 of them that day. A guy sitting next to me in the 5th one, and he was whipped, and he was a young guy. He said, I am straight up tired, and they had him about every other hour. And so that was something. That was good, though. That was to me, it's one of the best things that they have there. And when we go to Atlanta, 3 weeks, praise the Lord, it's only 4-hour drive now getting you there is what we'll have to figure out logistically, but we'll get that figured out. It won't be a drive. There'll be a flight involved somewhere.
Yeah.
But yeah, the speed networking thing they have there, I'd have to say that's absolutely great. Anybody that has anything like that, develop something like that, because boy, you talk about instead of walking around trying to have a conversation, people looking at vendors, you weren't supposed to talk to the vendors because they were there trying to, sell their wares, services, product, whatever it was to help business owners. So you didn't go up to them and start pitching yours unless it became a 2-way conversation and they asked you, then you could do that. But walking around, a lot of people, you'd have to, my experience, we reached out. There was a few people, but most of the time you reached out to them if you saw them. So the speed networking was a way to really maximize the value of meeting people, connecting with people. I knew they had that there, but until you experience it, you don't realize how really valuable that was.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, and that's a good way to put it. I think for me, I didn't partake in the actual speed networking because I was the one who was actually filming Jerry have conversations with people, which actually turned out to be a lot of fun because I was able to hear everything he was saying, everything they were saying, and just the reactions, the energy that he brought to every conversation. And I can't speak for you, Steve, because I wasn't listening to your conversations, but from what I was hearing from Jerry, to your point, it was directly paying attention to them and staring a hole in the center of their face with your attention. And it honestly shocked some people because I couldn't see their face. I could only see their backside because I was filming from back here facing towards Jerry like you're facing me on the screen right now. And so I could see his reaction, but I couldn't see their reaction. But I did see a reaction with their body language.
Absolutely.
And some of them were easily going to be like, as soon as they sat down and Jerry's like, hey, how you doing? Hey, my name's Jerry. What's your name? Oh, okay. Tell me a little about yourself. Like, what do you do? What do you have? Or he would start it with just like, man, this is insane. Like, I've never done anything like this. And he's like, I'm sweating just sitting here. And like, it's intense, but I love it. And based off of those reactions, getting a pulse of what the engagement was or on the other side was interesting for me to see based off of the certain type of people. And I'm not saying this is a male, female thing or whatever. It was just more across like if you have that kind of personality and people want to latch onto that, they'll latch on. And you could see after that first initial engagement, people that would lean in and you could tell they were like excited about it, or the ones that were a little bit more like shook and didn't know what to do. And so they kind of sat back a little bit and they were kind of like, not leaning back, but just kind of sitting straight up where it was like, okay, when clearly you said it's loud, you can barely hear anything else going on around you. So if you got to make sure you're hearing the person across from you, you're going to lean forward. And so if you're not leaning forward, that gives me a sign of, okay, I'm a little like gun shy or this is too much and that's not Jerry's problem. That's a individual user error problem. Because that's where, and I think for me, just watching that, it showed me how many people out there that are in love with the idea, but when it comes to meeting and going and doing the motions and not not having everything perfectly planned. Because I know some people had their pitches, they had their ideas, they had their every rebuttal. The Smurf is what we called him. Had every rebuttal to everything he was pitching about his business. It's okay to not have all that. And it actually is better to not have all that, because then you don't feel a cheesy salesman. You feel somebody who's real, and you're there to learn and to put the reps in. And that was something that I saw with just you and Jerry going round for round across those tables, was just getting those reps in. Not every conversation was going to be a deal closer. Most of them were just, what am I doing here? How am I talking? What am I like feeling like emotionally I'm giving off? Am I coming on too strong, too soft? All those things were great for me, and I know great for all of us, because we were just going out there and doing it, rather than half the people that I saw walking by that were parallel next to me outside the area that look like, man, they look like they wanted to be a part of that, but they were, oh, I don't know, I don't have my pitch lined up, and they just never do. Those ideas that they had might have been $1 million idea. And if they would have actually just jumped in there and started asking people and saying, hey, is this good? Or, hey, do you need this? Or, hey, is this a good product or a good service? They'll never know. And that's like part of the idea of the most amount of money that could have been made that wasn't made is in the cemetery. Because it's based off of the ideas that people had that they never executed upon, or never fulfilled, or never put into fruition, didn't test it, weren't putting in the reps to make it happen, and those ideas went with them to the grave. And so for me, it hit me when I remember hearing about that years ago, that I'm like, if you have something and you believe in it, you got to make sure you're actually putting it into fruition. Because so many people will just keep that idea, or keep that that product or that service or that business idea, and they'll try to perfect it before they ever try to launch it. If we tried to perfect our thing, we wouldn't have even gone, because we Absolutely. Were not. We were far from perfect. We had nothing together. So, but when we talked about that, and Jerry mentioned that a few times in some of his conversations, it was very compelling, because on the other side, it made them feel comfortable, because they knew in their head they didn't have all their shit together. So for them, they felt as just vulnerable as Jerry was, and Jerry was the one who admitted to it, of saying, hey, we don't have anything. Or when they asked for a business card, he was like, dude, we didn't even bring business cards. We're that underprepared. He's like, I got this little QR code right here if you want to scan it. And so, but that kind of relatability made people just get their guard down immediately. And it was just, oh, I feel safe talking with this individual, because he's not someone, even if Jerry probably was one of the most successful people at probably all those tables when it came to making $4 million his first year business, and 6, then 8, then 14 million. And like all of those millions of dollars he's made in revenue, he said that to them. But even in the same conversation, even in the same sentence, he was saying, I wasn't making money. My business was falling apart. I didn't have all my stuff together. That's why I needed a peer group. They found stuff that I know that I would have missed, or would have went head on into, that would have messed me up severely. And so when he was able to take that kind of conversation and build up the accolades, but the accolades weren't the ship that was going through the rest of the conversation. It was like the great wave that pushed the ship, but over time that wave cascaded down to like nothing, and then the momentum stopped. How did you pick that momentum back up? And that's kind of how the conversation, as I was listening to 30, 40 of them he was having in every 2 minutes of intervals, I was picking that up, and I was like, wow, that's super cool. So for me, I have never done sales. I've never done pitches. I've done all the marketing stuff. But for me, I took away just an extreme learning by just listening. I wasn't talking to anyone, but I was picking up certain things and certain cues that I was like, yeah, I got to start doing that. In just my everyday conversations. And you probably had the same just based off of the amount of conversations you had.
Yeah, there was a lot. Like I said, if anybody had a right to feel uncomfortable about the situation, because we did have ideas, we're going to have the shirts, we're going to have the cards, going to have all that. And then you show up and you don't have it. And I think that's where a lot of people were like, well, I don't have it the way I want it to be, so I'm not going to do it just yet. And I think not having the experience, but other things in life, it's not always business where you wait till I'm going to, wait till I have everything in order and then it'll be right and then I'll do it. But there's never a perfect time. And sometimes you just got to do like we did, just take what you have and run with it. That's like they say, they'll just run up a flagpole and see who salutes. That's what you had to do going out there. So I was super satisfied, excited about the results we got out of it and how, in a sense, we performed with what we had, because we knew we had conviction in what we can do to help people. And that's one thing I had. And one of the things that resonated with people, even when I'd throw the pitch, I'd look to see how people responded to it. And one of the things I started, and it was good because as you taught, you could refine it. Next time you do it. You talk about getting able to, well, I have to do that again. You had 2 minutes, a minute really, because you did yours in part of the minute. They did theirs in part of the minute. And then when that minute was up, you sit down, and usually I'd go first. And it was just the idea that even if you don't have it all together, you just got to go. We had enough. We had, 70% of what we wanted. We didn't have the full 100%, but we took it, and look at the value we received out of it. Not just from what we're able to tell other people, but what we learned about ourselves. And that's the only way to do it. You just got to get in there and do it. The feedback came from us, from each other, as far as how'd it go? What do you think we did? What do we need to do next time? But even then, if I was sitting there by myself, I wouldn't have got the feedback if I wouldn't have heard from you or heard from Jerry, about the experiences, what we did, didn't do. So as far as that goes, it's just you there's never a perfect time. You just got to go. Otherwise, you'll get the paralysis by analysis. You just analyze everything, make sure. And I have that in me to where I can go and just trying to wait till it's just right. Let's get all these ducks in a row. And the ducks are never going to be in a row. They're just never going to be in a row. You just got to go. And then as you go, you figure out how to get them in a row as you're moving along. But what really helps that and you help move along faster is somebody that's already put their ducks in a row before. So they can guide you, give you the input, give you the perspective that you didn't have. One of the things I'd say that I'd watch the reaction to things I said. And of course, I don't have Jerry's story when I'm telling it. But one thing that resonated with me that Jerry said, and I think everybody, almost to a person, everybody agreed with, I'd see their facial reaction. And I'd get to a point where I'd say, because being an entrepreneur is lonely. You're trying to make these decisions. You can't go to the employees. You can't, most business people don't know other business people as far as to have these kind of conversations with them, more intimate conversations about what's going on in my business. Most of the time, two business people get together. They'll talk about what's going good, but very few people will say, boy, I'm struggling in this. I don't know what to do here. I'm stuck. And that's one thing that the Kronos Group provides is that peer-to-peer networking of people that, everybody's background's different. Everybody's had different perspectives on it and what they can bring to the table to help people solve their problems. What I kept calling their Monday morning problems. You can go to things, like the masterminds, and they have their place. But most of the time, they just make you feel good, give you ideas about what to do, and you go. But as soon as the idea doesn't work, you're waiting for the next mastermind. But you can't ask a question what it is. You're still stuck with what I called your Monday morning problem. You go in, open the doors, still got this problem with employees, got this problem with revenue, got this problem with growth, whatever it may be, as far as the direction you need to go or get unstuck from. Or a lot of times the value, and like Jerry's talked about, is you haven't got to a point, but when you get here, watch out for this pothole. It's going to be there. Yep. How to navigate that and to get around that. So yeah, overall, a fantastic experience for sure, as far as what to experience. And of course, now we'll be more than ready, because I know us, but we'll be much more ready at our next one. I know how we're not going to
aim too high, but
that's one thing
realistically.
Yeah, that's one thing I say. That's where the stories come from, the good stories, because there's a lot of learning stories that that are good stories, because when you tell them, other people haven't been there yet, but hopefully it sticks with them. Like, oh, okay, I'll make sure next time I've got this. Like, if I were to talk to somebody, you had a group of people like, hey, we're going to go to one of the expos. Just think of the input that we could give. Okay, do this thing, check this out. Don't spend too much time here. Do look at this, to maximize the effect, just like a business. We could go in there with our collective experiences that we had just with one. how much more valuable it would be if we had a group, say if there's a group of people going to the Atlanta one, what to do, what not to do, what to think about, what you should consider, And the thing is what's good about the Kronos group too is the accountability, because then you could get back after the Atlanta one, get back together. What'd you do? What you didn't do? This will work better if you do this next time, or you could avoid this, or you could do this to get more out of it. Just like in a business, when you have that peer-to-peer involvement of other CEOs, founders, solopreneurs, whatever it may be, individual business owners that can provide that insight based on experience to help you get past your stuck points and to make sure you avoid any potential potholes down the road for sure.
Yeah. As you said that, Steve, I was thinking through kind of like in the future, knowing that we're going to keep going to these things and keep showing up and keep doing what we know we should be doing, as well as also what should we be learning and adapting to. And down the road, I definitely see us being an exhibitor, but being down there not just with us three, but members of the Kronos group as well that are at the Absolutely. Same area, and them having those conversations with just people that walk by that are that entrepreneur that's all alone, that entrepreneur that's just like, hey, I don't know if I should get this tool, I don't know if I should use this service, I don't know if I should use these products, I don't know how to get these customers. And it's like you walk right into one of our conversations, and it's just real conversations that you said are like the real Monday morning problems that you walk into that are still in the back of your head as you're at this event, hoping to kind of like get rid of those. But at the end of the day, you're not just going to get rid of them if they're already in your own head that you don't have a solve for. But having those conversations with people that have had those experiences, or at least have a different perspective on something, that don't have the blinders on, that are within your own business that you're only seeing, that's where it's invaluable. And that's where Jerry always says you can't afford not to. And it's one of those phrases that when I first heard him say it a few times, I was like, oh, that's catchy, or oh yeah, that's a good tagline. But then over time, that the value just within that statement, it just continues to build and create momentum in my day-to-day scenarios. And I'm starting this as a business, as being a first-time, I wouldn't say an entrepreneur because I've always been an entrepreneur, but a first-time business owner or a co-founder of a business, that I'm like, man, that's powerful, because I don't know anything compared to you and Jerry. But I also do know things that you and Jerry don't know anything about. And that's the power of the Kronos Group, is essentially we are our version of what we're building as the Kronos Group. We're Absolutely. Building each other up. We're finding those stopgaps that are in our own experiences and fill in those gaps with each other's experiences.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and I think that's what the Kronos Group just, when you have that, it's like, I always think of there was a certain style of fighting that I think it was the Vikings, where they had these armored walls, and they would create the front wall, but then they created these walls with their shields over the top that protected the guys. So when people shot up arrows, even if they weren't coming straight into them, they were still protected on the top, and it created this overarching tunnel of just defense that you couldn't penetrate. And I was like, that's kind of how the Kronos Group is. You as a business owner have a shield, and maybe you're around other business owners, but when you guys are in a peer group together, you are in one of those battalions together, those 300 Roman soldier styles. Man, they're unbeatable at that point, because then they can be able to protect each other and give each other assistance and guidance and direction with just being in proximity and knowing that, hey, we're all trying to make ourselves better. The same thing those soldiers were doing. They were all there because they knew if that guy wasn't watching my back, we're not going to win. We're going to die. So it's I depend on that person to my left and to my right just as much as they depend on me. And when you have that within just a day-to-day scenario, now I'm not saying we need to go to that extreme, but when you have that kind of ability to be able to create that camaraderie, but that accountability within day-to-day entrepreneurship, the sky's the limit. then it gets exciting because then you're like, okay, those challenges that used to be a challenge just for myself, I'm going to go head first into those challenges. Call me crazy, but I think I can do it now. And it's not because I think I can do it on my own. It's because I have a peer group around me that is giving me that knowledge, that is giving me those understandings and give me those experiences that I wouldn't say overpower my experiences, but it makes things that I thought were a big deal look like nothing. So why not? Why can't I have that conversation now after I've practiced it with someone who had it with 1,000 other people already? And it might be my first time, and they'll acknowledge that, but give you that kind of direction that is just you can't get from a YouTube video. You can't get from a mastermind. Yeah, you'll get hyped up and you'll be like, okay, cool. But tomorrow morning comes around, you're not going to have your iPad with all your notes and being like, all right, so this is what we're going to talk about today. I'm going to talk to this person about this. No, that's all out the door. It's you in a room and nothing else. So what were you able to put in those reps to build that consistency to where it creates a second hand or second nature or subconscious reaction? Because the only way you can do that is to do the 10,000 steps of it, the 10,000 reps, to where it becomes a subconscious reaction or a innate thing that you do just because it's like your go-to at that point. So just very interesting, but I think it was just super cool to kind of like put those pieces together.
Yeah, you can definitely see we're having that support. You know, I've got other sales that I do, and we meet together, and I know how much that helps with somebody that's been further down the road in the sales than me. Or, you know, if they just, even people that have my same experience level or even less than me, but they've experienced something I haven't had, because we all have our own stories. We have our own backgrounds and experiences. And if you think, well, I don't have anything to offer, no two experiences are the same. There's a lot of overlap, but there's always something that could be brought to it and also help, you know, bring out the things that you need to know that there's just no way you have, back to that blinders. You know, especially if you're an entrepreneur working on a business, you're just trying to get that day-to-day thing done. You got your head down in it. And you really don't have time to look up and just kind of survey it, get that 10,000 foot view. But everybody else in the group isn't in your day-to-day business. So as soon as you present the problem, they're looking at it from 10,000 foot. And they're looking at it from the right, the left. You know, if you're on a compass, they're looking at it from northeast. And all you're doing is trying to, you know, just head north. Let's get this thing moving. Let's get it going. And you just don't even realize you're coming off. It's like, why are you going northwest? You know, a lot of entrepreneurs working by themselves, just trying to survive, just trying to figure this thing out. You know, never even saw that perspective. Like, oh, I didn't even know it was going that way. Oh, yeah, you're going way northwest. You're wanting to go north, right? I said, yeah, okay. Well, here's how you can course correct that to get on there. You know, well, I found this, you know, this big gully, and it kind of detracted me, and I had to go around this way. And then there was another thing. There's a big, thick stand of trees, and I had to go back this way, and I was off course. And they tell you, okay, well, next gully you get to, this is what you can do to span the gully instead of having to go around it. Oh, okay. And this is what you can do. Somebody else is like, this is what you do when you hit that thick thing of trees. This is how I've gotten through those before, so you can stay the course. So again, going back to it, that's what the Kronos Group provides. It provides that ability to have those other perspectives and insights of the collective experience, and of course Jerry's experience of doing this for over 25 years, you know, doing all that he's done, and the values, even just what he's experienced, and how to help you avoid those experiences if at all possible, you know, to make sure you get the success that you're looking for.
Yeah, it was also interesting yesterday seeing the amount of people that were there just gathering information and just wanted to be around that atmosphere, and the amount of within the workshops. I'm not saying that anything was particularly wrong or bad or amazing, but when you look into what the general population is giving as information to business owners, it's very fluff centric. And I say fluff meaning that it's kind of the bare minimum, the tip of the iceberg information that you might not hear on an everyday basis. So it might be something relatively groundbreaking or earth-shattering for you, but to anyone who's been in that industry, it's like, yeah, but you could go a little bit deeper, just a little bit deeper, to provide that one little extra connection point that makes it to where it's an actual actionable or next steps possible for that business owner. And I think that's where walking through some of the workshops yesterday and kind of seeing what they were talking about, some of the topics and stuff. If I'm a business owner, I honestly could have got half of that information just off of YouTube by just typing into AI, hey, how do I get leads for a podcast? How do I get leads for a digital marketing agency? A lot of those things, what they were talking about up there, and like I said, I'm not saying that they were wrong or bad or good or incorrect, but it was just so top level. And that's where I was like, man, they're missing that extra selling point of going just a little bit deeper, but making it applicable and saying, hey, this is how you go from here to here. Instead of like, hey, this is what you can do if you join my program. Give them the value for free. Don't give them just the superficial, like just tip of the iceberg, just enough information to kind of get their feet a little bit wet, but then pay for the rest. And there's a lot of big, I wouldn't say entrepreneurs or companies out there that say that you shouldn't do that because you need to make money. But working enough with people like Gary Vee, seeing teams that worked for Alex and Layla Hermosi, the amount of value that those people give out every day for not a dime in return speaks to their ability to grow and scale businesses far beyond the common small business person or small business brand. And it's because it's so reverse psychology of what the standard business go-to-market strategy business setup is saying to every other person for the last 20 years. You get them into the funnel, you make them buy for this, and then you go and buy them this. And it's like, no, give them the ship and then show them how to sail on the ocean. Not give them the pieces to build the ship, and then they got to figure it out and build it together. And they're like, I got this little email template, and I got this CRM tool, and I paid for this mastermind program, and now I got to put it together and build this ship. And they're not ship builders. They don't know how to build the ship. They're just thinking, hey, I like this. I see this. Let me try to replicate that. And it's not going to work because it's not them. It's not their identity. It's not who they are as a business or their experiences. They're just trying to piecemeal what they can together. And so instead of doing that, just give them the ship to sail on. But a ship is no good if you don't have a course, if you don't have a navigation of where you're trying to go. And so that's where the real money is give them the ship. And people are like, no, that's costly. Yeah, it does. But now they trust you to navigate them and course correct them across an ocean that is vastly beyond size of that ship. And that's that's the world. You just gave them the tool of building a small business. And they're like, oh, this is cool. This is my machine. I can go anywhere and everywhere. Yeah, but you're going to run into some big storms that might destroy your ship. So if you want to work with me, I'll help you navigate that ocean. And I'll show you the way that I've gone, the ways that I have gone and ran into some storms that almost killed me, destroyed my business. But we can navigate around that if you allow me to work with you and to sail this ship together. And it's one of those things that it's earth-shattering for certain people because they're like, no, you gave them that tool. Yeah. And so for the Kronos Group, I want to put videos out that are around digital marketing, but not just this is how you acquire a customer. It's like, no, these are the tools I've used. Here they are. Here are the links. You can download it. You can use it for free. You can buy it. Here's how I built it. Here's how we manage it. And here's how we gain new leads. And here's how we build out all these other journeys. And I'll show you on a video, all for free. But if you want to be able to scale that, if you want to know how it's applicable to your specific industry, then that's where I would love to have a conversation with you to join the Kronos Group, because I would love to be able to actually build out that custom journey for you and your business. And so instead of just trying to make them pay for this one little thing that's not going to do anything, give them all that for absolutely free, no one charge. And it creates this rule of reciprocity within someone that feels like they've been given so much value that they're like, I got to at least give him a conversation. He just gave me all this and it helped me out so much, but they're not looking at that next chess move. They're not looking at the 2 to 3 steps beyond just moving that pawn from square one to square two. You're thinking that far in advance, and you're like, okay, here's where you need to go in order to actually get some headway and to potentially try to win this game.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because the key comes down to it is when you do navigate those things, because you got people that know how to navigate the storm. Staying with your analogy, they've learned how to read the skies. So it looks like it's going good here. Well, it will be going good here. But then, it's going to get to a point also where, you're going to run into stuff and you're like, don't you see what's happening up ahead? And that's where something like the Kronos Group can help you. There's a lot of people that have sailed a lot of ships on a lot of seas in business. And that's the value that the Kronos Group brings as far as how do I get this thing to where I want it to go and as far as I want it to go. So if you are looking for something like that for sure, I definitely say, give us a call, click a link, go to our website, thekronosgroup.org, to find out more, to have more conversation of what this looks like, what it would sound like. And, the conversation's free. Let's just have a talk. Just like we did at the expo. Everything there was just, let's have a conversation, see what you got going on, see if there's anything, that could actually help with the problems. So like I said, the Monday morning problem that you have. That a lot of things are not going to do it. They'll make you feel good about that you could do something about it, but then when you get there, you open up the toolbox and it's empty. Like, well, I thought I had it. I felt good about it, So I definitely encourage, go to the website, reach out to us in any way, that we have myriad of ways for you to reach out and have contact with us so that you can have that conversation. Just see if there's anything we could do to help out.
Sounds like a plan. No, I love it. Again, thank you for listening to another episode of the Kronos Group podcast. Jerry actually called me about halfway through, and he was like, Matt, I'm a loser. I said, Jerry, what do you mean? He's like, I'm a loser, man. I completely forgot. I didn't get a notification for it, and he's like, I was going to dinner with the family, and so he's having a nice dinner, but he just said, I just wanted to let you and Steve know that I'm a loser, and we got to catch up on other things soon. And I was like, hey, no worries, we're recording away. And so I know he's going to love hearing that in the future. But it's good because he even holds us accountable when we first started that we wanted some weeks that we just wanted to skip. And he was like, nope, we got to make the content. We got to keep putting the stories out. We got to keep sailing the ship. And so to Steve's point, just click on that link on our website. You can go to any of our socials and engage with us and let us know just about having a conversation. We'll drop a link, schedule a quick little call. It doesn't have to be video. It can be a phone call. And if you're a business owner that is between that $1 million to $25 million in range of annual revenue and don't know what's next, I know I can do this. I have this thing and I know it's possible, but there's this 5% here or this 10% here or this little bit of weight that's just holding me down. We'd love to have a conversation about those things.
Absolutely.
And be able to help out how we can. So again, going into this next week, we're just going to keep pushing along, going to go into that next expo coming up this next month. And to all of our listeners, opportunities are everywhere, but you got to go get them. Enjoy, everyone.